I'm 54 and I've never owned a house, never had an opportunity to own a house. I've been trying to do so for the past 20 years. We've already raised kids in rentals. You know, I think that's, you know, I'm not ashamed to say it, that I deserve, you know, to have a shot at what most people in the Pêche have, which is a house.
On habite dans une maison qui est horrible. C'est vraiment pas un bon endroit pour habiter. Et ça fait depuis le début du COVID qu'on cherche à déménager. On n'arrive rien à trouver, là. C'est tout le temps trop cher. Ou ben non, c'est des chalets. Donc, c'est loué au mois, à la semaine, à des prix exorbitants.
Before 2018, the municipality had the way it dealt with requests for authorization to operate short-term rentals, like, and obtain like a CITQ license, which is like a provincial corporation that deals with that. We would look at, like, the urbanism department would look at its bylaws and say, well, this does not go against our bylaws, because we didn't really consider it to be commercial.
Toronto's extremely expensive, could not afford a home here by a long shot. And so instead found a home to buy in La Pêche. My wife and I, we went there back in 2017, and we saw what was available, and we really liked it. We liked the neighborhood, you know, the whole vibe going on there. And so we said, well, this is a great place to have a house. And my wife, she's from France, so it's nice to be with French-speaking people. I'm from New York City. It's nice to be around English-speaking people. And so it's also very beautiful.
En 2019, en juin 2019, mon conjoint a vendu sa maison à ma chambre. Il y avait un mois pour vider les lieux. C'était une des ententes de vente. On a trouvé cette maison aussi où est-ce qu'on est, in extremis, là, vraiment. Puis, c'est un coup qu'on a été à l'intérieur, qu'on s'est rendu compte de l'état des lieux, un coup qu'on a emménagé après un été, un automne. Puis, c'est à partir de là qu'on a commencé à chercher. Donc, ça fait... c'est avant le COVID qu'on avait commencé à chercher. Là. Mais avant le COVID, on voulait acheter. Mais là, après le COVID, un coup que le COVID a commencé, on s'est dit, on peut plus. Là. Si mon mari travaillait plus, fait qu'on a décidé de louer. Puis donc, on cherche depuis au moins 1 an et demi, si c'est pas plus, à louer.
It was do or die at that point in 2017. Because, banks are not going to loan to people much over the age of 50 for a 25-year loan, right? So, that was it. We had to go into it. We dove into it, broke our retirement savings. We had to pay a whole lot of taxes on that in order to get the down payment. So, we already sacrificed quite a lot to get it. And so, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the whole business of it being a rental, whether I'm Airbnb it or long term, I've paid my dues on rent. I feel like I deserve something in return. In this case, it takes that I use Airbnb to help me to finally own a house, to my family, my wife and I, to own a house, then so be it. No one else is helping us.
In 2018, we received a legal counsel or legal opinions telling us, no, this can be, and in some cases it is clearly a commercial operation.
The reason that there's a new proposal in front of us, it was triggered by the party that happened, the 500 people who went to one Airbnb back in early October, I believe. And this was not sanctioned by the owner. The owner said, it was a maximum, I think, of 6 people that could come. It had a list of who the people were, clearly said there were no parties allowed. They went and, they sabotaged that. They disobeyed and they went and partied, right, with 500 people. Again, this is probably, we didn't see anything like this before the pandemic. And I believe that particular incident was pandemic based because, as we've seen, the people at the rocks near the bridge, lots of people were coming up during the summer. Lots of people have no place to go because they can't go to wherever, Cancun, Florida, Cuba, wherever they used to go to party. And so they got to figure out something to do, in the area. And so they go after poor Airbnb, target them and let the owner deal with the consequences. And that's what happened.
Yeah, there was an event, last fall with a big, there was a big gathering, a big party of people. And as well, people are talking about the housing issues and all that. And we decided, well, maybe it's time to put a hold on the emission of new authorizations until we're able to complete that review, which could still take some months or so. This is why we adopted the interim control bylaw, just to say, okay, well, let's focus on the existing authorizations and their renewal, and before emitting new permits until we complete the review.
Nous, on aimerait ça se relocaliser dans une maison et non dans un appartement. Quoi qu'en ce moment, c'est un appartement dans une maison. Donc, c'est difficile. Tu sais, j'ai dit à mon conjoint, il y a plusieurs appartements à Hull, mais il a passé sa vie ici. Lui-là, il ne veut pas s'en aller, là.
If you ban Airbnb, the houses either are going to go onto the long-term rental market or are going to be sold, right? So that new families can move in. That's the thinking, right? So they think that it's easy to trade off. Well, first of all, most of these places that were Airbnb were cottages to begin with long ago, right? They just used Airbnb for their business because it was, wow, this is so great. I can rent it more often, get a better deal. And but they were already cottages.
It wasn't only cottagers, for instance, like renting their cottages sometimes in the summer. It was also people building new properties dedicated solely to short-term rentals. So because of that, council decided, well, there are many things to consider, in this regard, and we should, rather than just remaining somewhat silent and tacitly agreeing to this going on, or banning it outright, we should try to find a way to sort of build a framework where we are able to consider many different issues.
So the first bylaw meeting was very much against the people who were non-resident Airbnb owners, right? I started participating in the process. The mayor had put together this process. You had to work with a group, and there was only one group to work with.
And it led to a big consultation, and then in the summer of 2019, we adopted a bylaw on short-term rental, and it was decided at the time that we were going to, years after, review the bylaw to see, okay, so after, for instance, a couple of years, what can we, are there ways to improve the bylaw?
There were no instructions. Someone called me, said, "Oh, this is how we work. We have to have this other person from one of the owners of a traditional bed and breakfast or motel participate in the group," and so forth. And right away, I started telling them, okay, look, here are the benefits to Airbnb. Here's how much economic value we have to the community. It mainly comes from us, the non-resident owners, because we're the ones who rent out the most frequently, right? I mean, we basically do it year round, except when we're at our houses. And it generates, I had calculated roughly about $5 million to the municipality in terms of economic activity, local economic activity, because most of our guests, They go to the ski hill, they go to the restaurants in Wakefield. Maybe they go to Chelsea, to the IGA to buy their food and go to the SAQ there to get the drinks. But for the most part, it's all spent locally.
The plan was, really like, given that we are entering the process of reviewing our urbanism plan and zoning bylaw following the adoption of the MRC master plan, it was logical to say, well, we'll review it once we get to that part of the review process.
I remember one of the council members, he came right up to me. He says, "I'm so glad you put this together. You brought up how much money is being generated because we were about to just completely ban it altogether. And then they said, but now, given the economic activity, we can't ignore that."
Les gens qui ont acheté la maison, en ce moment, louent dans Edelweiss, de l'autre côté de la rivière. Ils se sont dit, ce serait cool, on pourrait switch, tu sais. Nous, on s'en va là, eux s'en viennent ici. Le propriétaire veut pas, parce qu'en ce moment, il paye 1300 par mois. Fait que lui, ce qu'il veut, c'est 2500 comme toutes les autres. Les gens sont pas fous, là. Ils le voient là, sur Facebook, Kijiji, partout, là, les prix ont... Fait qu'il dit, non, j'ai des rénovations à faire, je peux pas prendre des nouveaux locataires. Écoute, on l'a visité, la maison, là, il y a aucune rénovation, c'est impeccable, là. Mais non, là, il veut rénover, il faut absolument qu'il rénove. Puis moi, je suis certaine que quand elle va être remise sur le marché, elle sera pas en bas de 2400, 2500 par mois.
So when we adopted the bylaw in 2019, the provincial orientation was not as clear as it is now. And it's still somewhat evolving, but what seems to be the orientation is that if you're renting your primary residence, I believe all you'll have to do is to get send a notice to the CITQ. If you're renting a secondary residence, then it's a commercial operation and the process is more extensive.
There's several you can call them classes of Airbnb people, or hosts, I should say. They're the ones that they have a house and they rent out a room in the house. They have common facilities like the kitchen, the bathrooms, they share it and they rent it out that way. Then they're the ones who are resident, but they rent out their entire house. Like, for example, they go away on vacation and instead of just letting the house sit there, they rent it out and they have some more money for their vacation, right? That's another class of Airbnb owners. And then they're the ones like me who do this, who rent out the house, don't live there, or at least not much. Like, for example, in my case, I go up there, me and my family and I go up there for our vacations. We spend all our vacations up at the house in Pêche.
So we made a distinction in 2019 when we approved our bylaw. I believe the provincial, in some way, I think the recent provincial orientation is even more permissive than our 2019 bylaw, which is okay. Ultimately, it says, well, it's your primary residence. If you go to Florida 3 months a year and you want to rent your property, for example, it's okay to do that. So the distinction is, this is the distinction. If you're renting your primary residence, what you'll have to do is just declare it.
But then they started saying, well, we don't want regulations on us, but we want regulations on you. You're the problem. You're the problem with the parties. It's you. It's not us. We're around, even though they're not around when they're on vacation. So they try to pin the blame on us.
When you say base, or you mean the Airbnb owners who are part-time?
Yes. I have a whole lot of documentation. I was part of it. They had written up, they had somehow removed me from the mailing list when I was participating. And they had decided to write in all this information. They piggybacked on our economic value, right? Because they don't bring much of any value because they don't have not enough people come due to their activities. Nor do they pay cleaning people, to tune that we play. We have to have people mow our lawns, shovel our driveways, because, you know, we're not there to do that. We have to hire people for pretty much everything. And so we bring in a lot of activity and support a lot of people's incomes, right? That maybe goes unnoticed, but definitely goes unnoticed.
Il y a des opportunités, il y a des enjeux. Là, c'est vraiment un mélange de tout ça, là, mais il y a clairement des liens. Je pense pas que les liens soient aussi drastiques que, par exemple, à Paris ou dans le centre-ville de Québec, ou bien dans des villes où il y a un grand bassin de logements locatifs qui, au fil des ans, est converti en logement de courte durée. Parce qu'en partant, on a un enjeu vis-à-vis de l'offre de logement. On a une uniformité au niveau du logement en territoire rural. On a des maisons unifamiliales, là, surtout. Mais il y a quand même un lien.
Quebec really does regulate rents. And I give that as a credit to Quebec. But the thing is that what is good, I mean, for keeping rents low is also something that inhibits anybody from becoming a landlord. Your rents are regulated. For example, you can put your house for rent and say, oh, I'm going to rent it at $1,500 a month. I think that's enough for me for it to be worth it. That's the minimum, right? So you rent it out at $1,500. Well, the person that just signed the rent calls a régie and says, I think this guy is renting this place at too high a price.
C'est jamais vraiment en bas de 2 000 $. Puis en ce moment, notre budget mensuel est de 2 500 $. Alors, il nous reste comme 500 $ pour... C'est impossible, là. C'est impossible.
With densification, you can build, smaller units, smaller housing units. Otherwise, like what we see in the MRC, like what came out of the study is the uniformity of housing. You're looking at more than 90%, of housing units are single homes, which by definition is costly.
If you ask people in Pêche who've rented, most of them will say it's something they never want to deal with again, because you just have as a landlord, you don't really have much recourse, many rights, and many ways to collect if something bad happens. So you're really, it's not something you want to get into lightly. I have all the respect for people who are landlords because, boy, it's tough in Quebec.
C'est quoi votre plan si jamais vous n'arrivez pas à trouver dans la région? Qu'est-ce que vous prévoyez de faire?
Ben, c'est sûr que je sais pas. Je sais pas. J'ai aucune idée de ce qu'on va faire.